Introduction to the 1983 half dollar, a window into American coinage. The 1983 Kennedy half dollar is more than just a 50-cent piece minted in the United States. It is a symbolic representation of a turbulent era, commemorating a martyred president, and a reflection of America's evolving relationship with its own currency. To appreciate the full depth of the 1983 half dollar, one must examine not only the coin itself, but also the socio-economic environment of its time, its place in U.S. numismatic history, and the long journey of the half dollar denomination in American monetary culture. The Kennedy half dollar was first minted in 1964, just months after the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy in November 1963. The idea for the coin was fast-tracked through Congress with bipartisan support and national urgency. The public response to Kennedy's death was one of immense grief and national mourning, and so a coin in his honor was seen as a fitting tribute. The half dollar was chosen because it was a larger denomination and already featured a respected historical figure, Benjamin Franklin, who would be respectfully replaced. Sculptor Gilroy Roberts, obverse, and Frank Gasparro, reverse, were tasked with creating the new designs. Roberts used a profile of Kennedy he had previously designed for a presidential medal. The coin was approved and struck in 90% silver for the year 1964. However, by 1965, due to a national coinage crisis and rising silver prices, the U.S. Mint shifted to a reduced silver composition, 40%, and then in 1971, all silver was removed from general circulation coins, including the half dollar, replaced by a copper-nickel-clad composition. The 1983 Kennedy half dollar continued with the copper-nickel-clad composition established in 1971. This composition features an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to an inner core of pure copper. Key specifications include diameter 3061 mm, weight 1134 grams, thickness 2.15, edge reeded with grooves, mint marks. Coins were struck at both the Philadelphia, no mint mark, and Denver, D mints in 1983. Composition: outer layers of cupronickel bonded to a pure copper core obverse. Front: features a left-facing portrait of President John F. Kennedy. Inscription: Liberty, arches across the top with "In God We Trust" divided across the sides of Kennedy's neck. The date 1983 is placed beneath the bust. The mint mark, if present, D for Denver, appears just above the 8 in the date. Reverse, back, based on the presidential seal, an eagle with outstretched wings, holding an olive branch. And a bundle of arrows, a shield, covers the eagle's breast. A ring of stars encircles the eagle's head. The inscription, United States of America, arches across the top with half dollar on the bottom. A pluribus unum appears on a banner held in the eagle's beak. The design remains largely unchanged throughout the series, symbolizing continuity and respect for Kennedy's enduring legacy. The year 1983 was a transitional period in American history. President Ronald Reagan was in his first term, navigating the country through economic recovery after a deep recession in the early 1980s. The Cold War tensions remained high, and domestically, the country was shifting toward conservative economic policies and a deregulated market system. Inflation had been a major concern in the 1970s and early 1980s. By 1983, inflation was easing, but interest in coin collecting was subdued compared to earlier decades. The coin shortage that once gave coins like the 1964 Kennedy half dollar an aura of desirability had dissipated. Still, the Kennedy half dollar retained a ceremonial and symbolic presence in American coinage. By the 1980s, the half dollar was becoming increasingly rare in circulation. Despite being a legal tender coin, it was seldom used in everyday transactions. Many Americans considered it a collector's item or novelty rather than a practical currency. The result was limited production numbers compared to lower denominations. Mintage: numbers for 1983, Philadelphia, no mint mark. 34,139,000 coins. Denver, D, 32,472,244 coins. There were no proof coins struck at the San Francisco Mint for 1983 Kennedy half dollars, as the Mint did not produce proof sets that year due to technical issues with packaging. This makes high-grade circulation coins from 1983 relatively more desirable among collectors. For most circulated 1983 half dollars, the value remains close to face value, especially if worn or damaged. However, in uncirculated mint state conditions, the coin's value can increase depending on its grade and mint mark. Mint state MS60 to MS65 typically ranges between $2 and 10 high grades, MS66 and above, can reach $30 or more, especially if the coin has strong luster, clean surfaces, and full details. Mint errors. Any 1983 half dollars with notable mint errors, such as off-center strikes, double dies, or planchet flaws, can command premium prices depending on rarity and condition. Notably, because there were no proof versions or mint sets issued in 1983, collectors seeking high-quality specimens often turned to mint set coins or bank-wrapped rolls that survived in exceptional condition. That scarcity and high grade adds to the allure for specialists. The 1983 Kennedy half dollar holds a peculiar spot in American numismatics. While not rare by mintage, it is significant due to the absence of proof coins and the low survival rate. In high grades, its importance is further elevated by its context within the broader decline of the half dollar in general circulation. Since the 1980s, half dollars have increasingly become collector items, primarily issued for collectors rather than widespread use. The 1983 issue serves as a reminder of this transitional phase when the denomination was still struck for general circulation, but fading in everyday commerce. The decline of circulating half dollars. By the mid-1980s, the Kennedy half dollar had virtually disappeared from public use. Businesses rarely requested them, banks didn't stock them in large quantities, and the public largely ignored them. The coin's large size made it inconvenient, and vending machines were not built to accept it. Despite their low circulation, the mint continued to produce them into the 1990s and beyond, often in smaller numbers, and eventually shifting production primarily for numismatic sets. The 1983 issue thus sits at a historical crossroads, produced for circulation but already fading from the pockets of everyday Americans. For collectors, assembling a full set of Kennedy half dollars includes the 1983 issue as a noteworthy challenge. Since no proofs were made that year and many circulated coins are well worn, collectors seek out mint state examples with attractive eye appeal. To add interest, some specialize in toned coins from this era. Others pursue die varieties or look, for strike differences between Denver and Philadelphia issues. Enthusiasts also compare strike sharpness, hair detail on Kennedy, and clarity of the eagle's feathers on the reverse. The 1983 Kennedy half dollar may seem mundane at first glance, a copper nickel-clad coin produced in the millions. But its significance lies in its timing, its connection to history, and its quiet role in the story of American coinage. It commemorates a beloved president, reflects an era of economic transition, and highlights the waning utility of the half dollar denomination. For the numismatist, the 1983 half dollar is a story wrapped in metal of presidential legacy, national mourning, changing monetary habits, and the cultural shift away from tangible coins to the digital age. Collecting such a piece means holding a fragment of that story in your hand, an everyday object with extraordinary historical resonance. The 1971 United States half dollar, a complete historical and numismatic exploration. Introduction: the end of an era and the birth of a tribute. The 1971 United States half dollar marked not only the introduction of a new coin design, but also the culmination of several socio-political, economic, and numismatic trends that shaped mid-20th century America. This particular coin, commonly referred to as the 1971 Kennedy half dollar, embodies a deep history linked to American politics, public sentiment, monetary policy, and the evolving identity of U.S. coinage. This half dollar stands at the intersection of legacy and innovation. It was the first year the half dollar was minted without any silver content since 1794. Additionally, it continued to honor President John F. Kennedy, whose assassination in 1963 profoundly shocked the nation and the world. In this essay, we will journey through the context, design, mintage, composition, variations, collecting significance, and cultural symbolism of the 1971 half dollar. On November 22, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. The tragedy prompted a wave of mourning across the country, and within hours, plans began to create a coin that would memorialize the late president. After swift legislative approval, the Kennedy half dollar was introduced in 1964, replacing the Franklin half dollar, which had only been minted since 1948. Initially, the coin was made of 90% silver, like most U.S. coinage of the time. In 1965, due to the rising cost of silver, the composition was changed to a 40% silver-clad version. This reduced silver content continued until 1970, when the U.S. Mint finally transitioned to a copper-nickel-clad composition for nearly all circulating coins, including the half dollar. Thus, 1971 marked the first year the Kennedy half dollar was minted in a copper-nickel composition, which made the coin accessible in large quantities for everyday transactions without drawing the attention of silver hoarders. The early 1970s were a period of economic transformation. Under President Richard Nixon, the U.S. was shifting away from the Bretton Woods system of international finance. In August 1971, Nixon suspended the convertibility of the dollar into gold, effectively ending the gold standard and leading to a fully fiat currency system. This monumental change in U.S. monetary policy coincided with the minting of the first fully base metal Kennedy half dollar, making the 1971 issue symbolically aligned with a broader departure from metal-backed money. While the Coinage Act of 1965 set the stage for gradual removal of silver from circulating coinage, by 1971 the public had already begun to hoard older silver coins. As a result, half dollars, especially silver ones, disappeared from circulation. Despite being produced in large numbers, the Kennedy half dollar was seldom seen in daily transactions, which has remained true to the present day. Part 2. Numismatic specifications. Composition and physical characteristics, metal composition. Outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to an inner core of pure copper. Total composition, 91.67% copper, 8.33% nickel. Weight, 11.34 grams. Diameter, 30.6 millimeter. Edge, reeded, resembling grooves or ridges. Designer, Gilroy Roberts, obverse. Frank Gasparo, reverse. Design details, obverse. Front. Features a left-facing bust of President John F. Kennedy. Designed by Chief Engraver Gilroy Roberts. The portrait is elegant, strong, and idealized, capturing Kennedy's youthful vigor. Inscriptions, Liberty. Arcs around the top. In God We Trust is split around the neck. 1971 appears below. Reverse, back, features the presidential seal, an eagle holding an olive branch and arrows. The eagle's chest bears a shield. Rays and stars surround the eagle, designed by Frank Gasparo. Inscriptions, United States of America, around the top, half dollar at the bottom. The FG initials for Frank Gasparo appear near the eagle's tail feathers. Part 3, Minting and Varieties. Mint locations and mint marks in 1971. The Kennedy half dollar was minted at two primary locations. Philadelphia Mint, no mint mark. Mintage approximately 155 as 164,000 coins. Denver Mint, D mint mark below Kennedy's neck. Mintage approximately 302,097 424 coins. Note, no proof versions. Were made at the San Francisco Mint in 1971 using the new base metal composition, but collectors could still find prior silver-clad proof versions from 1965-1970.2. Key varieties and errors. There are a few notable varieties and errors among the 1971 Kennedy half dollars that collectors look for. 1971, D no FG variety. A rare error where the initials FG, Frank Gasparo, are missing on the reverse. This is caused by over-polished dies, double die obverse, DDO. Less common but includes doubled lettering or date digits. Clipped planchets, rare minting error where a portion of the coin is missing due to a miscut blank. Off-center strikes and broad strikes occur during minting mistakes, offering value for error coin collectors. Part 4. Collecting and Market Value. Despite large mintage numbers, the 1971 half dollar was rarely used in commerce. Many people saved the coins because of their connection to JFK or out of habit from when earlier versions contained silver. Today, 1971 Kennedy half dollars are common in circulated condition, but are often retained more for sentimental or collection purposes than for transactional use. Collector value, circulated 1971. Kennedy half dollar, typically worth face value. 50 cents to about $1 to $2 in very fine condition. Uncirculated, MS-60, MS-65. Value ranges from $3 to $10, depending on the mint and quality. High-grade coins, MS-66 plus. Certified coins in high mint state grades can reach $50 to $100 plus, especially if struck at Denver and well preserved. Varieties, e.g., no FG, DDO. These can command $100 to several $100 depending on condition and rarity. Collectors often use services such as PCGS or NGC to grade high-quality examples. Grading provides authenticity and a market benchmark, particularly for error varieties or high-grade uncirculated pieces. Part 5. Cultural Significance and Legacy. The Kennedy half-dollar, including the 1971 issue, remains a powerful symbol of American memory. Kennedy's image conveys idealism, youth, and national hope. The coin effectively serves as both a circulating medium and a piece of memorial art. Educational and historical use. Many educators and numismatists use the Kennedy half-dollar to teach about coin minting processes, presidential history, the transition from metal-backed money to fiat currency, mid-century American history, and political culture. 3. Continued production and modern usage. While the 1971 Kennedy half-dollar ushered in a new era of clad coinage, the coin itself is still minted today, mostly for collectors. In the years since, it has become an essential part of U.S. numismatic heritage. Conclusion: a coin of transition and tribute. The 1971 Kennedy half-dollar is more than just a piece of metal. It is a monument in miniature, a political relic, and a numismatic turning point. It symbolizes the end of silver in everyday coinage, the economic transition of the United States in the 1970s, and the enduring respect for President John F. Kennedy. Although the coin may not hold great monetary value in most conditions, its historical and emotional significance keeps it relevant for collectors and Americans alike. Whether found in an old drawer, inherited in a family coin collection, or purchased at a coin show, the 1971 half-dollar continues to connect generations to the legacies of leadership, change, and memory. The 1972 United States half-dollar, a deep historical and numismatic analysis. Origins and background of the Kennedy half-dollar. The 1972 half-dollar belongs to a coin series known as the Kennedy half-dollar, which was introduced in 1964. Following the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy on November 22, 1963, the coin was fast-tracked as a national tribute to the fallen president. Mint officials, Congress, and the Kennedy family swiftly moved to replace the Franklin half-dollar, which had been in circulation since 1948, with a new design bearing Kennedy's likeness. Within a month of the president's death, legislation authorizing the new design was passed. The U.S. Mint then worked closely with the Kennedy family, particularly Jacqueline Kennedy, to ensure the portrait used on the coin was dignified and respectful. The chief engraver of the U.S. Mint, Gilroy Roberts, sculpted the obverse, front, of the coin based on a bust of Kennedy he had created earlier for a presidential medal. The reverse, back, was designed by Frank Gasparo, featuring the presidential seal with a heraldic eagle holding arrows and an olive branch. The Kennedy half-dollar was first released in March 1964. An overwhelming demand from the public caused people to hoard the coins as mementos rather than spend them. This behavior persisted for years, leading to a significant decline in their use in circulation. The early Kennedy half-dollars of 1964 were struck in 90% silver. However, due to rising silver prices and hoarding, Congress passed the Coinage Act of 1965, which eliminated silver from dimes and quarters and reduced the silver content in half-dollars to 40%. These 40% silver coins were produced from 1965 to 1970. By 1971, the composition of the half-dollar changed again. Silver was completely removed, and the coin was made of a copper-nickel clad composition. This change aligned the half-dollar's metallic content with that of the dime and quarter in hopes of restoring it to everyday circulation. This new composition carried over into the 1972 Kennedy half-dollar. Thus is 3. Design details of the 1972 half-dollar. The 1972 Kennedy half-dollar maintains the original design first introduced in 1964, although slight refinements were made to accommodate the clad composition and improve die life. Obverse, front. Portrait, John F. Kennedy, facing left. Designer, Gilroy Roberts. Inscriptions, Liberty, arches across the top, In God We Trust. Is divided across the bottom, and the date 1972 is centered at the bottom beneath the bust. Mint mark, located on the obverse just below Kennedy's neck truncation and above the date. The coin may show a D, Denver, an S, San Francisco for proof coins, or no mint mark, Philadelphia. Reverse back. Design the Great Seal of the United States, an eagle with a shield on its chest, an olive branch in one talon, and arrows in the other. A ring of stars surrounds the eagle. Designer, Frank Gasparo. Inscriptions, United States of America. Arches over the top and half-dollar is displayed across the bottom. Fee, production, and mintage numbers in 1972. Kennedy half-dollars were minted in 3 locations. Philadelphia Mint, no mint mark. Mintage, 153,000, 180,000. These coins were used in circulation. Denver Mint, D mint mark. Mintage, 141,890,000. Also made for circulation. San Francisco Mint, S mint. Mark mintage, 3,260,996. These were proof coins struck with polished dies on specially prepared planchets. They were not intended for circulation and were sold to collectors. This brings the total mintage to nearly 300 million Kennedy half-dollars in 1972. 1972 was a notable year for die varieties and minting errors. Collectors often search for these distinctions because they can greatly increase a coin's value. Key varieties and errors include 1972 D, no FG variety. On some Denver minted coins, the initials FG, Frank Gasparo, located to the right. Of the eagle's tail on the reverse are missing due to overpolished dies. This variety is collectible and sells for a premium. Double die obverses, DDO. There are some examples of doubling in the inscriptions on the obverse, such as In God We Trust or the date. These varieties can be valuable, especially in higher grades. Errors where the blank planchet was mispunched, resulting in a partial coin. These minting errors are sought after by error collectors. Despite high production numbers, the Kennedy half-dollar was rarely seen in actual circulation by the early 1970s. Several factors contributed to this. Public sentiment. Many Americans continued to view the coin as a memorial piece and kept them as keepsakes, change in vending machines. Most vending and coin-operated machines never adopted the half-dollar. Collector demand, collectors and speculators. Acquired roles from banks, often keeping them off the market. Lack of use in daily transactions. Because people didn't carry or use them, businesses stopped accepting or giving them out. By the late 1970s, the half-dollar had become functionally obsolete in everyday commerce, though it continued to be minted, mostly for collectors and institutional use, e.g. casinos. The value of a 1972 Kennedy half-dollar depends on several factors: mint mark, condition, and rarity of error, Josh, variety. Circulated examples, P and D, face value to around $1.50 in average circulated condition. In mint state, MS60, MS65, values range from $3 to $20 depending on the grade. Proof coins, S-mint, range from $3 to $10 depending on grade. Deep cameo, DCAM. Or high-grade, PR6970 examples can fetch $15 error coins, e.g. no FG double dies. These can range from $20 to several $100s, depending on rarity and condition. Certified coins. Coins graded by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC tend to command higher prices due to authentication and grade assurance. 8. Historical significance and cultural impact. The Kennedy half-dollar is not just a coin, it's a national symbol of memory and unity. It stands as a tangible expression of America's grief and admiration for one of its most beloved presidents. The 1972 issue was minted during the Nixon administration in a time marked by Cold War tensions, the winding down of the Vietnam War, and Watergate beginnings. Although by this year the coin had lost its silver content and much of its circulation presence, its symbolic value remained intact. Millions of Americans kept them in jars, drawers, and coin albums. The Kennedy half-dollar also became a cultural object, often given as a tip or gift, especially in the 1970s and 80s. Its large size and bold profile of Kennedy gave it an aura. Of importance, Ike's conclusion. Legacy of the 1972 half-dollar. The 1972 Kennedy half-dollar occupies a unique space in American numismatics. It represents a time when coins still had strong emotional resonance. While it no longer contained silver or was widely used in transactions, the coin remained a respected tribute to JFK. Collectors continue to pursue 1972 half-dollars for their historical significance, die varieties, and nostalgic value. They are accessible enough for beginners and hold just enough mystery and potential for error discovery to attract more seasoned hobbyists. As one holds a 1972 Kennedy half-dollar today, it's more than just a 50-cent piece. It's a small, metal time capsule reflecting the politics, people, and passions of the United States bicentennial half-dollar, marked with the dual dates 1776-1976, stands not only as a circulating coin but also as a tribute to the American spirit, commemorating 200 years since the founding of the United States of America. Issued as part of the nation's bicentennial celebration, this half-dollar was a special issue of the Kennedy half-dollar series, which had been introduced in 1964 in memory of President John F. Kennedy following his assassination in November. 1963, what makes the 1776-1976 version of the Kennedy half-dollar distinct, apart from its dual dating, is its reverse design and historical significance rooted in one of the most patriotic milestones in American history. The decision to commemorate the bicentennial on circulating coinage was authorized by Congress in 1973, and the U.S. Mint undertook a national competition to choose new reverse designs for the quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coins, marking the first time in decades that U.S. circulating coins would feature anything other than standard designs. The half-dollar's winning design, created by Seth G. Huntington, features an image of Independence Hall in Philadelphia, the building where the Declaration of Independence was debated and adopted on July 4, 1776. This design was carefully chosen for its historical resonance, as Independence Hall is universally recognized as the symbolic birthplace of the United States. The obverse of the coin remains largely the same as the standard Kennedy half-dollar, showcasing a left-facing bust of President Kennedy sculpted by Gilroy Roberts. However, unlike regular issues that bear a single-year date, the bicentennial edition displays 1776-1976 beneath Kennedy's profile, a stylistic and symbolic choice that pays homage to the continuity and endurance of the American experiment. Over 2 centuries, the reverse design by Huntington is rich in symbolic detail, showing not just Independence Hall, but also a small Liberty Bell in the foreground, and the dual date appears below the building. The motto, 200 Years of Freedom, is inscribed along with the traditional United States of America and half-dollar. Also present is the national motto E pluribus unum, which translates to out of many one, reflecting the unity of the original 13 colonies and the many peoples who later contributed to the American identity. The bicentennial half-dollar was struck from 1975 through 1976, and none were dated 1975, even though production began that year. Coins were struck at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. Circulating coins struck in Philadelphia, no mint mark, and Denver, D-mint mark, were composed of the standard copper nickel clad. However, the San Francisco mint, S-mint, mark struck special 40% silver-clad versions intended for collectors, both in proof and uncirculated formats. These silver versions were available in sets sold directly to the public by the U.S. Mint and are distinguishable by their more lustrous, heavier appearance and composition. The production of bicentennial coinage was massive, with hundreds of millions of half-dollars entering circulation, though over time they became more of a collector's novelty than a commonly spent coin. Despite their wide release, few saw regular use due to the declining popularity of the half-dollar denomination in everyday commerce. Nonetheless, for millions of Americans, especially those who received them during the 1976 celebrations, these coins served as cherished souvenirs of a momentous national anniversary. Numismatically, the 1776-1976 half-dollar offers collectors several varieties and points of interest. Among the most notable are the proof versions, which were struck with specially prepared dies and blanks to produce mirror-like surfaces and frosted details. These were included in bicentennial proof sets and silver proof sets, which remain popular. With collectors today, another point of fascination for specialists is the variety of die strikes and minor design changes, including differences in the clarity of the details of Independence Hall, slight variations in lettering, and even potential doubled dies, although the latter are rare. The 1776-1976 half-dollar is also notable for marking a brief return to silver in U.S. coinage, a throwback to earlier pre-1965 coins, which had contained 90% silver before the Coinage Act of 1965 removed silver from circulating dimes and quarters, and reduced it in half-dollars. Historically, the bicentennial coinage campaign was a unique moment in U.S. numismatic history. It marked the only time when the standard quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coins all simultaneously bore commemorative, reverse designs and dual dates. The effort was part of a broader national celebration, which included parades, special legislation, patriotic media productions, and the American Freedom Train, which traveled across the country showcasing historic artifacts. The bicentennial. Coins fit perfectly within this cultural revival of patriotism and historical reflection. Beyond their role as currency, the 1776-1976 half-dollars have served as educational tools, conversation pieces, and time capsules of the mid-1970s American consciousness. They reflect both a reverence for the founding ideals and the desire to unify the nation during a time when the country was still recovering from the social upheavals of the 1960s and the Vietnam War. Today, the bicentennial Kennedy half-dollar remains widely available, especially in circulated condition, and can often be found in coin shops, online auctions, or in the possession of individuals who saved them as family keepsakes. In circulated condition, their numismatic value is usually modest, often just face value or slightly more, but uncirculated proof and silver-clad versions command higher prices, especially in high grades, certified by third-party grading services, such as PCGS or NGC. The silver content of the San Francisco versions gives them intrinsic bullion value, while pristine specimens in original government packaging retain strong collector appeal. Ultimately, the 1776-1976 half-dollar stands as more than just a monetary object. It encapsulates a national milestone, celebrates one of America's most iconic buildings, and pays tribute to the vision of independence, democracy, and unity that gave birth to the nation. It bridges the colonial past and the modern era and continues to capture the interest of numismatists, historians, and patriots alike. This description includes historical background, mintage details, design evolution, symbolism, metal composition, production process, distribution, and collector context. The 2023 Kennedy half-dollar, a full numismatic journey, a legacy forged. In Tragedy and Honor, the story of the 2023 United States half-dollar cannot be understood without first appreciating the origin and legacy of the coin it continues. The Kennedy half-dollar. Introduced in 1964, shortly after the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy in November 1963, the coin was more than a simple denomination. It was a national tribute, struck with emotion, reverence, and public demand that bordered on devotion. The 1964 Kennedy half-dollar was struck in 90% silver, a composition that made it valuable not just in metal content, but in memorial symbolism. The rapid development of the coin was unprecedented. Within weeks of Kennedy's death, designs were submitted, approved, and dies prepared. Sculptor Gilroy Roberts' profile of JFK on the obverse and Frank Gasparo's modified presidential seal on the reverse created a lasting icon in American coinage. Though its composition changed over the years, from 90% silver, 1964, to 40% silver, 1965-1970, to a copper-nickel-clad version, 1971 onward, the design remained largely unchanged, making it one of the longest-running unchanged coin designs in U.S. mint history. The role and relevance of the half-dollar in modern times in 2023, the Kennedy half-dollar lives on, though not in general circulation. Once a workhorse of American commerce in the early 20th century, the half-dollar has largely disappeared from daily financial use. As coin-operated machines, debit cards, and mobile payments have risen, the half-dollar's role has diminished to ceremonial, collector, and niche economic functions, e.g. casinos, vending, and banks ordering bulk coins. Since 2002, the U.S. Mint has produced the Kennedy half-dollar mostly for collectors and numismatic sales. However, due to growing collector interest and some renewed demand from banks, in 2021 the Mint resumed limited circulation strikes. That trend continued in 2023, marking the coin's continued legacy. Mintage and varieties. What was made? In 2023, the 2023 Kennedy half-dollar was struck in several varieties: circulation strike, business strike, produced at the Philadelphia P and Denver D mints, proof strike, produced at the San Francisco S Mint in standard proof finish, depth mirror. Background: frosted relief. Silver proof strike, also at San Francisco, featuring 99.9% silver composition for the silver proof set. In total, millions of circulation quality coins were minted, though not released directly into everyday commerce. Instead, they were sold in rolls and bags directly by the U.S. Mint to collectors and coin dealers. Here are approximate mintage figures: Philadelphia, P, 5.2 million Denver, D, 5.2 million San Francisco, S, clad proof, 500,000 San Francisco, S, silver proof, 400,000. These numbers reflect a balance between collector demand and the Mint's desire to maintain accessibility without flooding the market, which might decrease numismatic value. Design details and symbolism obverse. Front, design, a left-facing bust of President John F. Kennedy. Designer Gilroy Roberts, original 1964 sculpt. Inscriptions: Liberty, In God We Trust, and the year, 2023 mint mark, located below Kennedy's neck truncation, P, D, or S. This portrait, unchanged since its original release, was taken from a presidential medal designed by Roberts. The realistic depiction of Kennedy, confident and resolute, reflects the nation's memory of a young, vibrant leader struck down too soon. Reverse, back, design, modified presidential seal designer, Frank Gasparo symbolism, an eagle with a shield. On its chest holds an olive branch, peace, and a bundle of arrows, military strength. Encircling the eagle are 50 stars, one for each state. Inscriptions: United States of America, a pluribus unum, and half-dollar. The design closely mirrors the Great Seal of the United States and emphasizes continuity, unity, and democratic. Values metal composition and physical properties. There are two major compositions for the 2023 Kennedy half-dollar: clad, copper-nickel. Outer layers: 75% copper, 25% nickel core, pure copper. Total composition: 91.67% copper, 8.33% nickel weight, 11.34 grams diameter, 30.61 mm edge, reeded silver, proof only, composition, 99.9% silver weight, 12.5 grams diameter, 30.61 edge reeded. The silver version, while not intended for circulation, is prized for both bullion value and aesthetic beauty. Collecting the 2023 half-dollar. Market and packaging collectors could acquire the 2023 Kennedy half-dollar through several official Mint channels. 2-roll set P and D. Each roll contained 20 coins of uncirculated finish. 2-bag set P and D. Each bag contained 100 coins per mint. Silver proof set S included the 2023 Kennedy half-dollar in 99.9% silver, along with other denominations. Clad proof set S included a mirror-finished Kennedy half with a copper-nickel composition. These coins were shipped in official Mint packaging, including certificates of authenticity. For silver and proof sets, pricing varied depending on market silver values and mintage demand. The silver proof coins generally command higher premiums due to both intrinsic and collector value. Grading by PCGS or NGC, the two major grading services, plays a crucial role in determining a coin's value. High-grade 2023 Kennedy half-dollars, especially those graded MS70, perfect, or PR70 DCAM, deep cameo proofs, can fetch significant premiums. Circulated or raw examples may only trade slightly above face value unless they feature unique errors. Or varieties, common market values as of 2024, uncirculated, PD, 1-2 proof, S, 3.7 silverproof, S, 10-20 certified MS70, PR70, 30-100 plus, depending on demand. Every year, collectors search Kennedy half dollars for notable mint errors or unique die varieties. Though the U.S. Mint has high-quality standards, occasional anomalies are treasured. Double dies, most visible in God We Trust off-center strikes, clipped planchets, proof coin die polishing errors. To date, no major errors have defined the 2023 series, but future discoveries could influence market desirability. Cultural and symbolic importance in 2023 in the modern era, as the United States continues to grapple with its past, present, and future, the Kennedy half dollar remains a symbol of 1960s optimism, tragedy, and enduring national spirit. In 2023, a year marked by political tension, economic shifts, and global uncertainties, the coin's timeless imagery of a bold American president and the heraldic eagle stood as reminders of American ideals. Some collectors argue that the Kennedy half dollar is due for a redesign, as other denominations have embraced rotating themes, like the quarters. Yet many view its consistency as a feature, not a flaw, a static monument in a world of change. As of 2023, there are no official plans to discontinue the Kennedy half dollar. However, as with other denominations, the U.S. Mint and Congress could reimagine its purpose. Possibilities include commemorative redesigns, limited circulation resumption, precious metal series expansions. The coin remains a favorite among roll hunters, casual collectors, and die-hard numismatists. With its mix of historical significance, design beauty, and relatively affordable cost, the 2023 Kennedy half dollar holds its place in the hearts of many.